All right, Chaz, let's get right to it. Terry Francona said this week, it's like we're in the land of opportunity. And when he said it, he was talking about the bullpen, but really you could say the same thing about the rest of the team at this point. It's early June, and there are ample opportunities available with the Cincinnati Reds. In the bullpen, yeah, of course. In the lineup, definitely. And you and I both know this. There's a standard answer in a big league clubhouse when less established players say, I just have to be ready when my time comes. Well, for the Reds, these Reds, you don't have to wait and wonder when that time is going to be. If you're those players, the time for that is right now. Early this season, Nathaniel Lowe got the opportunity, cashed in. A few weeks later, J.J. Bleday did the same thing. Player of the month. Now TJ Antone, Blake Dunn. Who's next? Noelvi Marte, Edwin Arroyo. Don't know. My point is, if the Reds start winning consistently again sometime soon, it might be with a group that looks pretty different from the group that won pretty consistently the first 6 weeks of this season. So, Chaz, all of that said, how do you see this new land of opportunity at Great American Ballpark?
It's the trend, not even of Nathaniel Lowe and JJ Bleday, who it feels like have been doing this for a relative long time. It's the trend of two other guys you mentioned, Blake Dunn and TJ Antone. Blake Dunn went from 26 man to the leadoff spot in about a week. TJ Antone went from a guy who pitched once in 12 days in mostly lower leverage spots to maybe the Reds' best right-handed reliever in about a week. So all of those moving pieces provide the window into the opportunities, the lack of others being able to take advantage of the opportunities they've had, injuries, put all that together. And it's a Reds team with unbelievably fluid moving pieces.
I'm just thinking about early in the season when they're 9 games over 500, what that group was. And we've dissected ad nauseum how they won or what they overcame or who struggled at that time. I get it. But if they get back to a group that plays well again, like I said, it could look really different because who's out right now who was around for the first part of the season? Hayes, Hines, Friedel, Williamson, Pagan, Johnson, Ashcraft, Phillips. Who's now in? Some of the guys you just mentioned. Dunn, Marte, Arroyo, Antone, Ferguson, Paddock, Maxwell, May. Who knows about those guys, but they weren't part of the first run. And now because of the situation, the injuries, the season, performance, everybody's in right now. If the Reds are going to fix it, everybody's in. Welcome to Power Stacks, proud members of the Growler Podcast Network and proudly presented, as always, by Joseph Toyota of Cincinnati. Chaz, Reds hit the road this weekend for St. Louis and then San Diego. They try to bounce back from a tough homestand, but while that team on the field is still dialing it in, and there's so much to talk about, there's one team that doesn't need a warm-up period. They're always there for that opportunity. It's Joseph Toyota, where it's opening day every day. No slumps, no streaky performances, just a lineup of seasoned pros bringing their A game from the first customer to the last. So whether you're buying a car or truck, maybe you want to trade, maybe you want to look around, just talk to somebody about it, get some information, this is a team that's locked in, prepared, and ready to deliver a win every single time. Because in this game, consistency matters. And Joseph Toyota doesn't wait around to get hot. So as you're tuning into Power Stacks all season, watching the Reds at Great American Ballpark, remember there's already a team in town that's playing championship-level ball every single day. It is Joseph Toyota of Cincinnati, always in mid-season form. And again, our thanks to the good folks there. Stop by, talk to them, tell them you heard about it on Power Stacks, and thank them for their support of our show. Coming up right now, summer just started. I get that. The Reds still have more than 100 games to go, so why talk about 2027? Well, we're glad you asked. Also, the difficult discussions being had inside and outside the Reds clubhouse about TJ Friedel. And which Reds player jumped at the chance to talk hoops with Chaz, and how basketball might in some way influence his career in baseball somewhere down the road. It's an interesting conversation. We tie in multiple sports, and I can't wait for that. But first, Chaz, so much focus for the Reds lately has been on the bullpen for obvious reasons. But here's a recent observation: those issues in the bullpen aren't nearly as glaring if the Reds could just score some runs. If they put up 5 or 6 runs in the Chase Burns start, it's by no means a sure thing, but you could at least take some of the pressure off some of those guys in a bullpen that is now completely unsettled while they're trying to find their way. For the Reds, in each of the 2 games that they lost against Kansas City, they scored 2 runs. In the game that they won, they only had 2 hits and 2 runs until the ninth inning. So I'm looking at numbers. You go back 6 weeks in the Reds schedule, mid April, they've won 19 games in that stretch. And in just 3 of those wins, did they score fewer than 5 runs. They have to score to help the pitching staff because, unlike the pitching staff, injuries haven't been the problem for the lineup. They have to find ways to score, and that was never more evident than in the series against Kansas City, a series the Reds desperately needed to win and barely won a single game.
It kind of all ties together. Bullpen, lineup, this, that, rotation, defense. The word I keep going back to is it's a team that's been top heavy. And the numbers bear that out. I pulled the stats a couple of days ago, but the Reds basically had about as many position players and pitchers with with wins above replacements, wars below zero point 0. They had as many of those guys as anybody in baseball. You look at the opportunities that Noelvi Marte in April got, that Reese Hines got, that Colerain Hayes got, and all the at bats. You look at the bullpen, and Tony Santillan struggles. Pagan struggles before he went on the IL. Now you've got Junior Marte and Lyon Richardson are in and out, and Brandon Liebrandt's in and out, and you've got all these rotating pieces who construct half your roster who are giving you replacement or worse level production. And you put that all together, and those are the types of outputs that lose you games. And there have been a lot of games where, yes, you can highlight the bullpen in particular, and we've spent 3 shows talking about the bullpen. You've certainly seen that where the bullpen's just blown it. But then games where you've got nothing from the bottom 30 of your lineup or the leadoff spot, like those have added up collectively for a Reds team that's counting on too much from just a small group of guys.
You and I promised each other we weren't going to spend as much time on the bullpen on this show as we have in shows past. We have other things to talk about, and we get that. But something about Tony Santillan, while he's still one of the topics people want to talk about, I went back and looked last night after he struggled in the Kansas City series and continued to have those struggles. Remember how he started the season? He started the season so well. In his first 14 appearances, he was scored on in 1 appearance in one of those games. 13 of his first 14 outings were scoreless appearances, and at the time, we were saying he's getting it done without the velocity being back yet. He's getting it done other ways, and now all of that has clearly changed in an alarming way. But, we watched Andrew Abbott work through some things and then find it. It's harder for a reliever because of the situations that they're in and the spotlight on a smaller portion of the game. But as we watched Andrew Abbott do it and come out of it, is that what we're looking at right now? Is the Reds trying to allow Tony Santillan to do the same thing, to work his way through it and come out of it?
Well, it's like where the Bengals were at safety last year. The situation of the current depth chart impacts the runway that certain players get in prominent roles. And
Right.
the mistake that I think was made that won't necessarily happen again was saving, quote unquote, or slotting Santillan in for the ninth. And maybe if you had to pitch him, you could have pitched him sooner. But I believe the Reds' other options for the ninth inning last night would have been May, McCambly, and Paddock.
Yes.
It's where you're at.
Right.
And part of that is, and we'll probably get into the weeds of this at some point if the Reds season starts winding up or winding down. Like if that happens, then we'll tell a longer story about Reds pitching development in 2026 and how that's been different than it was coming off a 5-year run where I really mean this Reds pitching development was as good as any organization in baseball. It's been a down year for that. That's caught up to them a bit in the bullpen. That is a part of the conversation of why Tony had the ball in the ninth on Tuesday and why he's had the ball in the ninth so much. Um, but I think that's still a conversation for a bit later because the book on the season of a guy like Zach Maxwell isn't done. Stuff like that. Like I want to see how those stories end and how the Reds and where the Reds are at in terms of where these rookies are at whenever the season does reach its breaking point. However long that goes in the playoffs or in August at the trade deadline. So I need more of that information before I start writing the book on the Reds from a pitching development perspective. Being a disappointment in 2026, but all of that is a factor in why Tony has had and failed pitching through his struggles.
All right, so that's 10 minutes kind of on where the Reds are right now. We haven't even gotten to the leadoff spot or the top paragraph on the rundown. So let's do that now. The leadoff spot. And with all those things in mind, Chaz, that we just talked about, here's where we're going to go today. And before anyone points it out, before anyone says, "Hey, why are you talking about that?" There's going to be a lockout. We get it, okay? We know where things stand
That's
on
not
that.
this podcast.
That's not this podcast. We know you're gonna say this is gonna happen or this what may or may not happen before the 27 season. We're letting that go right now. Remember, we're a glass half full kind of a show. So just play along as if the 27 season is gonna happen next year, which we all hope it does, uninterrupted. Chaz, why would we be in early June sitting here with this group that Terry Francona and staff have right now? Why is there a conversation to be had about the future already? What are we watching unfold before our eyes right now?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting a little taking stock at things. Retrospective, I guess, is the word I'm
That's
looking
right.
for.
Setback
Maybe
like
that's
this.
where I'm at during what's been a tough stretch for the Reds. And I've just been thinking a lot as we've seen things change at a pretty aggressive rate. I've been thinking a lot about where things are going and the directions that they could end up taking. And that's had me reflecting a lot on the idea that, who knows where this season goes. I think there's still a wide variety of outcomes, both positive and negatives. Boy, the 2027 Reds are an unsettled team. And I've been thinking a lot about the 2027 Reds. And not that I'm a front office guy, but like this is how front office people think of it. What are we going to be next year? What's the 5-year plan? Like as you plot things out for the future, and TJ Friedel's demotion was another reminder of this. You're seeing a Reds team in a tornado of transition right now. And I did that was off the top of my head
That was
too.
I really like I'm a big fan of alliteration regardless, so that was good, but that was very descriptive, a tornado of transition. I say that with the same enthusiasm that I say land of opportunity. So go ahead with your tornado of transition.
I have no idea where this is going to go in terms of like who's like all right, so like we'll get into the nuts and bolts in a second, but like Ellie's going to be their shortstop next year. Green, Abbott, Ladola, Burns, and Louder are going to make up the core of the rotation. Steer's going to play somewhere. Stewart's going to play somewhere. Bleday's probably now worked his way into playing somewhere. The bullpen's a question. There's no veteran presence in the rotation. The outfield's a question. You have what's going to happen at third base, in center field, and at second base, and a huge wild card at catcher.
Yeah.
There's a lot that we're learning now about how these pieces will fit in the long term as guys like Arroyo and Marte and McLain still getting an opportunity. And this is Blake Dunn's chance. Like, this is a sneakily really important window to see who emerges from said tornado, because what happens here is going to shape the depth chart for several years, is going to shape where the Reds' biggest needs are going into 2027. Like, we're about to learn a lot based on who emerges and who flops with the opportunities they have right now.
But correct me if I'm wrong. What I hear you saying is that some of these players that may or may not be a part of the future for the Reds are here and playing now by necessity, obviously, injuries or whatever. Some of them by necessity, some of them are getting that look. But while they are involved in the current race and the current question to try to solve and answer some of the problems this team has to win in 2026, you're certainly building a resume, or you're building, if you're the front office, a book on each of these players, impacting how you slot them in or how you think of them moving forward into the future. Is that fair?
In some cases, yes. So, like, and we'll talk about all these guys in depth, but like injuries have in some ways presented opportunity. Injuries, let's just say, presented an opportunity for Edwin Arroyo. That's a good example. But then, like, there are other guys, put TJ Friedel in this category, who now obviously he went to AAA. Like, TJ Friedel was getting his opportunity, not because of injuries, it's because just where he was at. And then it reached a breaking point. Brian Hayes landed on the injured list due to the chronic back injury that he's continued to manage, but it felt like things were about to reach a breaking point in terms of what is Brian Hayes' role on this Red team going to be.
Yeah.
Like, Tyler Stevenson's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. At some point, he's got to get the batting average below 200, or else it's just a track record of production that you need more from based on who you're going to move forward with as your starting catcher, how you'd entertain bringing Stevenson back. Like, I put McLain into that category as well. Like, I put Tony Santillan into that category. These are core Reds who are really struggling, who now the sample sizes for them are climbing, and you're asking questions about them. At the same time, you've got these brand new faces. Bladay's been a success story. You've got Noelvi Marte. You've got Arroyo. You've got Zach Maxwell. Luis May's up, and I keep using this line, like, May could be their seventh inning reliever by next Friday, or he could be in AAA, and it could be anything in between. Like, all of that stew is, I mean, it is a stew because some of it's going to settle and some of it's going to float, and the density of each ingredient is, I guess, what we're figuring out.
Let's not get too scientific
I
into it,
can't
but
cook, so I probably shouldn't have done that.
neither I can't do much either. But I get what you're saying, and you're right. For the new players, yeah, they're building this book, and for the more established players, they're being forced to answer some questions that this team is gonna have to ask about them moving forward. So those 2 camps are where they are when you think about the future for the Reds, as you watch the current Reds try to fight through where they are. So let's do this. You mentioned this already, even before or right when Arroyo was called up. It may not be said out loud. Someone that matters may not verbalize this, but everyone understands, because of where Edwin Arroyo is playing right now, that there is an implied competition between the 2. That is, with Ellie De La Cruz now hurt, that
With
changes,
McLean,
like,
let's say the name with McLean.
McLain and Arroyo, yes. But
Yeah.
with De La Cruz now hurt, it changes the equation some, because McLain's obviously gonna play a lot of short and take De La Cruz's spot there. But if De La Cruz hadn't gotten hurt, you're gonna have opportunity for both McLain and Arroyo at shortstop, and you're gonna go, "Okay, who's it gonna be?" So what does the Arroyo breakdown look like as he enters this part of the equation with the Reds right now?
The most important part to start with Edwin is how can he play at second base? I think it was only, what, 30 minor league games that he had at that position. I believe the Reds, like, if you're just putting a team out to win game 7 of the World Series, I believe the superior defensive combination is McLain at short and Edwin at second, as opposed to Edwin at short and McLain at second.
Mhm.
But you're doing that even though that's still a position that Edwin's hardly played, and is a position he has to prove he can play. In addition to everything he's got to prove and solidify and legitimize offensively. So it's going to be important also for Edwin to continue to develop that versatility. He'll continue to take grounders at short. I do wonder what they do with him, if anything at all, at third base. But as we keep circling around the theme of the 2027 Reds, Is Edwin your starting everyday second baseman taking McLain's spot? Is Edwin a super utility guy who kind of fills the Espinal role, and he's also a switch hitter, plays some second, some third, some short, offers some different offensive upside in specific matchups? Is he still a really young guy who's kind of going through the up down phase that like Noelvi Marte has gone through for the last 2 years due to some inconsistencies? Like we've seen those inconsistencies with Noelvi. Will there be them with Edwin? Who knows? Let's find out. But I'm just pointing out these wide range of outcomes with Edwin, and that's not getting at the wide range of outcomes that exist with McLain as well. And we all know what those outcomes are with Matt.
So let's go with what we know right now. As we record, all we have to reference is the Kansas City series. So 2 games for Arroyo. He got his first big league hit. He made his first stellar big league defensive play. Struck out a number of times. That's what we know based on 2 big league games. So what you do is what else can inform an early opinion? It can be from people who know him better and have observed and watched him more. And I know you made your way through the clubhouse talking to some of those guys that know Arroyo from the past and know him from Louisville. What did you find out there?
Yeah, so we're gonna get to Blake Dunn talking about Edwin Arroyo, and kind of the reason I kind of took a little poll of the clubhouse among the guys who had spent notable time in AAA this year and asked them about Edwin. It's because of how big of to keep using the word range of outcomes there is with him. What is this guy who I saw him, I guess when I went to AAA a couple weeks ago, he got the day off. I saw him some in spring, but a guy who didn't play in 2024 because of the shoulder injury, a guy who didn't start his career professionally in the Reds organization. Like in some ways, it feels like we've still barely even seen Edwin. I was actually talking about Edwin with this about it or to Edwin about this the other day. Like it feels like you've been around forever, but it also feels like
Hmm.
you've been around for a second. And both things kind of feel true with him. And as you make the decision, who's it going to be? Arroyo, McLain? What's Edwin's role in all this? Do you keep moving him around positions? Do you lock him in at second? You just need to learn more about the guy, a guy you still don't know a ton about. So I did some of that when he got called up, but I guess more importantly, we'll see how this processes with what we see on the field from Edwin. But before Edwin's debut, I asked Blake Dunn what stood out about Arroyo, and it was a very effective scouting report. So here's Blake Dunn talking about his analysis of Edwin Arroyo.
And a lot of people knew when he was coming up or know of him and, like, with his defensive stuff. But he definitely, made a good impression this year with the bat as well. I mean, it was kind of like, I don't know, it just felt like every game he was putting together good ABs, and he would end up, I don't know, you look at the scoreboard and he's got 3 hits and a couple barrels, maybe if it's single or ball to the wall. Like, he was kind of doing a lot of different things really well down there. And I'm really happy for him. He's good, he works hard. When that's something that I like about him, it's just kind of his work ethic and stuff, and I think he's going to do well.
What's he like?
He's good. He's good. I mean, he's funny. He knows how to have a good time with the guys. He's just a hard worker, loves baseball. You can tell that he has a really high passion for the game.
He's got that smooth flair about him, and I'm not talking about anything off the field, or I guess on the field too, because he does wear those lime green cleats.
Shoes, yeah.
But just like look at the play he made in his debut at second base. Like he pounced on the ball and he like rolled. McLain's a great defender at second base. McLain has a very almost rigid slide. He doesn't quite bend like Arroyo. Arroyo did a somersault. Like McLain's a great defender. It's just different styles. And that's a part of the upside, that style that Arroyo has, because that allows you to get to different balls offensively or defensively. That allows you to make different plays in the field. That allows you to have a different twitch offensively. That McLain has more power. But Edwin kind of can go out and get a ball, or at least he's shown the ability to do that in AAA more than we've seen from McLain this year. So those are some of the exciting traits that led to Edwin getting this shot. But the question now is going to be, the way I see it, you've got 4 spots in the lineup every day for McLain, Arroyo, for Dunn, and for Marte. Excuse me, you've got 3 spots for those 4 players.
Yeah.
3 spots for those 4. And you can move pieces around. What does this shot mean for Edwin? Does he take the second base job and run with it for the next 5 years? Does he settle into a utility role? This is his shot to see how that career is going to start for him.
All of this, of course, happens, you know, with Matt McLain. Matt McLain can see what's happening around him. We'll put it that way. And I don't think, there's never been any doubt that McLain can play shortstop. That's who he was before, Ellie De La Cruz, and now he's at second base. So I don't think there's a lot to say right now about Matt McLain in the field. You're still going to enjoy watching him play shortstop. He's a great defender. But everybody's asking the questions, or you have to, if you're the Reds, asking the questions about McLain at the plate and if it's going to turn or when it's going to turn. Do you get a sense, or have you gotten a sense around McLain, who is a very, as we've said before, even keel, doesn't go too high or too low kind of guy? He's not going to panic. He's not going to throw things. He's not going to break anything in the dugout. That's not who he is. But he is having to process all of this right now, and it directly impacts him as a player. So I wonder how he's doing.
He knows it's a competition. He gets what's going on, and he's got to play better. He knows that. I am always going to remember, and we'll see who ends up emerging as the second baseman between Edwin and Matt. But I will always remember, no matter how this goes, maybe Edwin wins this by a mile, maybe Matt does. I will always remember Edwin got his first base hit. McLain was having a terrible game. It's the ninth inning. The Reds are down by 1,000,000. McLain just steps on a double down the line, and it's like his best swing in weeks. I like that about Matt. Matt, so before Ellie got hurt, I wasn't a believer of this. You've heard me say that on this podcast, but you could make a very rational argument before Ellie got hurt. Hey, it's time for Edwin to just replace Matt. Again, that's not where I was at, but many, many people were saying that. And there were reasons to say that. I get that. So when Ellie comes back, what does it mean for Matt? We saw a similar situation kind of last September when Sal Stewart came up. I think the plan was that Sal was going to play more at second base right when they called him up. And then Steer tweaked his rib, so he was out of the lineup for a few days. So they ended up playing both Sal and Matt. And then Matt had his best 5 games of the season. I wonder how that's going to go this time around with Matt, knowing the presence of Arroyo being right, in plain sight. They're friends, but it's kind of a keeping your enemies closer kind of thing. They're playing together, and you'll hear Matt say that, but he's got that reminder right here of what's at stake. Is Matt going to be the Reds' second baseman for the next 5 years, or is Edwin going to be the guy who has that job in 5 weeks? So McLain's one of the most interesting Reds for all those reasons. After Edwin's debut, after the game, that was my first chance to talk to Matt about kind of hey man, how you doing?
How do you guys now adjust as a team without Ellie?
Play the game. Tough night tonight, obviously, because of who he is. Everyone knows what he brings in this team. It's, speaks for itself. But, we got to grind out days, grind out pitches, and just, play the game the right way, play hard, 1 through 9, and we'll be fine.
How do you feel at shortstop?
Good. I've been taking I always take ground balls there. You try and get them there at least once a series, maybe every other. I think if you play shortstop, you can play anywhere. So I think it makes me better at second base when I take ground balls to short. So I've been taking ground balls there all year.
Was there communication with how it'll work, splitting time between second and short with Edwin up, or is that all stuff for later?
No.
What stands out just about Edwin?
That play that he made. He's a competitor. He's a gamer. He made that nice play in the hole. It's not easy going that way with a righty up, and then he got his first hit. It was really cool.
Do you view it as any sort of friendly competition between you two, or maybe even just a regular competition?
I mean, it always is. But we're teammates and we're out there playing up the middle together. I'm looking forward to turning more double plays with him.
Great answer by Matt McLain. And let's see how this goes. I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know who the Reds' second baseman in July or in April of 2027 is going to be. And Ellie's injury, provides that opportunity now for, on most days, I would think Edwin and Matt to both play somewhere. the telling sign will be, do they keep Edwin at second every day? Do they make it any sort of rotation with Matt at short? Do they have days where Marte's and Wright steers at second? And then on those days, how do they view Edwin versus Matt? Like, I bet a lot of that'll be matchups, but on the whole, who's got the edge day 1, day 2, day 3 going forward? Like, I see it as just a competition that we got playing out right now.
Well, yeah, it's probably a competition for sure, but you also are pretty sound defensively up the middle right now, even with De La Cruz out with those two on the field. But don't forget, this is still Edwin Arroyo is 2 games into his big league career. We're not talking um, about 2 players who both have a good amount of experience, who are working. It's very different. McLain's been around even with the time he's missed, and Arroyo is still the new guy. So there is that with the arrival of Edwin Arroyo in Cincinnati. TJ Friedel is now with Louisville. But don't forget this show, what we're talking about, just a reminder, we're talking about next year. So 2027, we know where TJ Friedel is now. And a lot of that will have to do with where he is next season as you try to piece together what the Reds are thinking now about the future. So let's talk about center field, because while TJ Friedel was in Cincinnati before he went down in Louisville, Noelvi Marte was playing some center field. So what are we thinking for next season and beyond?
First of all, and whenever maybe it's in, who knows how long TJ is going to play and stay in the organization. Maybe it's 5. I don't know. Like, whenever that time comes with TJ, I do want to make sure that, like, we go through and appreciate just
Oh,
how good Friedel was
yeah.
from August of 2020 when he got called up through the end of last season. Like, at this point a year ago, the Reds had a 2-man offense, and it was TJ and Ellie De La Cruz. Looking back between 2023 and 2025, among all the players who played at least 200 games in center field, Friedel was one of the best hitters in all baseball. I've got it pulled up right here. I believe he ranked like 6th in OPS among all the guys in baseball who played that much time in center field. And we all know what, you know, he was one of the most fundamentally sound defenders in all baseball on top of that. And he hustled, and the bunts added a little extra value. Like, Friedel was a top 10 center fielder, no doubt about it, for 3 years. And at center field, a position where, just look around the big leagues, guys don't stay at center field past 30. Not even Ken Griffey Jr. I guess he did a little longer, but the injuries, it's because center field's a really demanding position. It's become a really young position in the league. Like, I'll say it like this about TJ. If you tell me right now that Noelvi Marte for the next 3 years will be the player, will provide the value that Friedel did between 2023 and 2025, the Reds would sign up for that in a heartbeat. That's how good Friedel was. And for a team that, how many times we heard him say, they'll say, we want to build up the middle. We value those premium positions. I mean, that's catcher, short, second, and center field. So Friedel now, again, we'll see how this goes. He needs to play every day. We'll see if and when he gets called back up to the big leagues and what another shot would look like for TJ. Obviously, it's worth noting that, if it doesn't work out, they'd have to tender him a pretty decently sized deal in the offseason, and maybe he'd be a non-tender candidate if he doesn't get called back up. So for 2027, I think it's fair to look at a possibility. Obviously Friedel's not on the roster, so where are they at? What else do they have? And basically that's Blake Dunn, that's Noelvi Marte. And they're 2 incredibly different players. Like, Dunn's tools are sneaky. Marte's tools are loud. Dunn has done the little things better than Noelvi to this point of his career. Noelvi was the Reds' best player in August of 2025, and we know that he's capable of carrying a lineup if he's on. It's also like what I'd call a contract year for Noelvi, because this is his last option year. So next year you can't option him anymore. Like, next year he has to be up for good. So he's kind of got to figure it out now. It's also Blake Dunn's opportunity with how well he's playing. So you've got all that going on in center, and I don't know how it's gonna land up and shake out at such an important position.
I just wanted to backtrack because you're right. Any conversation we have about TJ Friedel, it comes with that kind of respect. On the pre and the post game show, Sam and I have referred to him over the past couple of years, and Sam brought up the other day, he's been a heart and soul guy for the last couple of seasons, not only with the way that he plays, but just who he is in the clubhouse and because of how he ascended to the position that he did to play so well. He had to fight his way, had to earn his way up. So that's all good. And that's why, as Terry Francona told us a couple of days ago, that's why the conversation was so difficult. The series of conversations they've been having as Friedel
Mhm.
struggled and first went from starting and hitting leadoff every day to then the bench role to now, hey, you need to go play. You're going to go down to AAA. Those are tough conversations, and yeah, we'll see where it goes with TJ Friedel. But as we talk more about Marte as an option, not only now but in the future as well, let's do Tito's take here with Marte because I found it interesting when we were talking to Tito about Marte coming up. He was so clear and specific with what was gonna be the focal point of watching Marte as an offensive player. Right away, he went to, when you're a player that chases, and he said, you can get away with that some in the minor leagues. It's so much harder to get away with at the big league, and that's what they're focused on, the chase and the consistency of Marte at the plate. So he was very specific about that. What did he say, though, about Marte as a center fielder? Because he said he's gonna play right and some center. So what did you get from Tito about the expectation or the feeling of where Marte is right now as a center fielder?
As we get to Tito, let's start with the roster math that I've alluded to a few times. So if you call it 3 spots for 4 players between Dunn, Arroyo, McLean, and Marte. And because of Sears' versatility, it could be a lot of different combinations of those players. It only works as 3 players for 4 spots if Noelvi can play center field. Um, you need a center field. And if Noelvi can't play center and has to play right, then to get him in right, you have to bench Arroyo or McLean, which maybe you're fine doing. I don't know. That's not where I'm going with this. Where I'm going with this, though, is that the setup from an upside perspective needs Marte as an option in center field. Just look at what the bar is, too. Like, if you could guarantee me that Noelvi would be a 7 out of 10 defensively in center field, you could truly live with the highs and lows offensively and just put him out there, and the defensive ability would carry him. And what he gives you, he gives you. And when he's hot, he's hot. And when he's not, he's not. And you kind of take that to the bank. He's not a 7 out of 10 yet. He's played the position for about a year. Let's hear what Terry Francona said about Noelvi in center field.
Yeah, I think by all accounts, the physical abilities are certainly there. The newness or the lack of experience, I think, shows up sometimes. I think that would probably be unfair to think it wouldn't. Saying that, like you look at Dunn has the tools to be a center fielder. Marte does too, just lacks the experience.
The tools are there with Marte. And Francona said that. The tools are there, kind of like how you see him with Dunn. And the question is, from the Reds' perspective right now, are you in the developmental phase where it's, you know what, let's just let Noelvi go play center field, live with some of the highs and lows, and see what happens and give him that runway in the big leagues? Or, I mean, you're also in a win now mode. At the same time, like, is your best chance to win now the however percent chance that Noelvi does click by throwing him into a spot like center field? Like, is the best way to win now just playing Noelvi because of the possibility of catching lightning in a bottle there? But Blake Dunn certainly is making his case as well. Like, Blake Dunn's making that a harder decision to make. Blake Dunn, a guy who probably profiles best as kind of a role player, a super utility outfielder. And I know that's, you know what I'm trying to say.
I do.
Noelvi can carry the flag in a full time in an outfield spot. Maybe. And is he ready to do that now? And can he do that in center field? That actually is the most important question from a depth chart perspective with how this team is how this depth chart is constituted right now.
Land of opportunity, center field right now. What about a couple of other positions for 2027? Catcher, you mentioned earlier, Tyler Stevenson, a free agent after this season. There's that position, and then also third base, which we've always tied Sal Stewart into the conversation. Can he? I think is becoming less and less of the question. Will he or will he need to? I think is becoming more of the question for Sal Stewart and third base.
I mean, kind of a concerning spot with the Reds too, as you look at the 2027 portion of things, and that's our framing device to look at the big picture of the depth chart and where things stand. Is the 2027 off season going to have to be just simply about filling jobs that desperately need to be filled at positions that are extremely difficult to find? Because if you go into 2027 needing a starting catcher and a starting center fielder, well, your chips get spent pretty quickly if that's the aisle you're shopping in, if those are the products you're shopping for, because of how much positional value inflates the price tag to get guys at those positions. So, and you look too, like, I love Alfredo Duno offensively, but like in the farm system right now, there's not a guy who profiles to be a starting catcher in 2027. In center field, we could have an intriguing Carlos Jorge conversation for down the road. Like, he's kind of been a not out of nowhere, because that's the wrong way. He's been around, but extremely unexpected breakout by him in Double-A this year. And what's kind of intriguing about it is it's the way he plays the game. Like, all of a sudden, he is this absolute energy spark plug who's doing so many things right down in Double-A. And this was kind of this huge leap from him. But, are you going into 2027 with Carlos Jorge competing with Dunn, and can Marte play there to be your options in center field? Like, I don't know, and if you're already looking at catcher and center, well, third basemen aren't easy to find either. And Eugenio Suarez is going to be a free agent. So now, are you committing to Sal there and trying to find the next Nathaniel Lowe at first? Are you prioritizing defense like you did when you got Colerain Hayes? Are you putting Colerain Hayes back in at third base? Are you putting Edwin Arroyo at third base because he showed more versatility than maybe you were expecting to see from him right now? There's so little that's set at these premium positions. I started the podcast with this. This section, I'll say it again. Like, Ellie's at short. Steers are going to be probably somewhere in the outfield. Stewart's going to be at first or third. Other than that, you've got the competition at second. You've got a massive wild card at third. You've got the opening at catcher. I guess Blade hopefully keeps this up and solidifies one of those outfield spots. What the heck is Noelvi Marte? Do any of these center field options emerge? And then you've got Steers' versatility that can help you cover some spots. But what do and don't the Reds have at premium positions at second base and center field for these guys who have such a wide range of outcomes, the players they are, and then put in third base as a semi-premium position where the Reds would like to be getting impact defensive output from as well? Like, there's a lot we just don't know that the Reds need to start figuring out, with the guys getting more opportunities now and the guys who could be getting less opportunities if the guys getting more opportunities do what the Reds hope they can do.
You mentioned Carlos Jorge. Other prospects part of the mix for next season? Your guy Hector Rodriguez is because I know you mentioned Alfredo Duno is probably not thought of.
He's a
that
ways
way
away.
yet.
Yeah,
He's a hitter, but he's a ways away. But are these others? These are names that people know. We've been conditioned to know Hector Rodriguez because it got thrown around with Sal Stewart for a while. Cam Collier has always been a name since he was drafted. Where are they thought of, I guess, right now, or how far away might they be?
Hector can hit. Defensively, he's got growth and consistency that he needs to show to prove that, one, he could be average, and two, that, he doesn't profile as more of a plays some outfield, is more of a DH type Cam Collier's numbers haven't been great this year, but I really liked what I saw in spring training. He figured some things out athletically, kind of just like what we saw from Sal Stewart, and he has true power potential. He's still so young. They drafted him when he was like 17.
Yes.
So there's continued just reps and experience. And when I say growth, I just mean kind of like literally
Mhm.
as you become like physically the player you need to be to compete at this level in the big leagues. Jorge went forgot from a guy who wouldn't have been on my top 30 to a guy who has a shot to help, kind of in a Blake Dunn mold. There is an optimistic way. Like the whole point of this is how unsettled 2027 is. There's also a case that the 2027 Reds, let's say Stevenson has a nice second half of the season and they bring him back. You've got Sal at first, McLain hits, and he's at short. Collier comes on, he's challenging at third. Hayes returns and gives you enough to hold you down the fort defensively at that spot. You've got Arroyo as the super utility player who covers you everywhere. Maybe he helps out more at third, and you're starting outfield of Blade, Marte, and Steer with Dunn and Jorge backing you up. And then Rodriguez coming on strong too as an offensive potential who can help you. Like, you can put on that hat. Like, we've covered the upside of each of these players, or, it can be the mystery box that we talked about earlier with very little unsettled and very few answers. Like, it could be anything in those range of outcomes. It's truly a glass half empty, glass half full type of thing. And that's what will make the trade deadline for the Reds as interesting as it's going to be this year. Because who are they betting on? Who are they not? What are the holes they see? What are the areas they're willing to trade from? And what are musts that they feel like they have to fill in the long term? And how do they get the assets and the resources to be able to do that at incredibly difficult spots to find, like catcher, center field if they need it, second base if they need it. Oh, and by the way, they're probably going to need a whole new bullpen next year, including kind of the wave of, hopefully, ideally, Maxwell, Phillips, May, et cetera. Like, you're still counting on those guys. Um, Ashcraft comes back, like, or he's going to come back. Like, it could be anything. The Reds could have this kind of 2.0 revamped core next year of ascending players and then the 2023 core in their prime, or it could be a radically different construction than, it could be something brand new outside of Ellie, Steer, and Sal compared to what we've seen. So it's all in the multiverse of the 2027 Reds.
Chaz, take a sip of whatever you have in your red Solo cup, because I feel like that took a lot out of you. There was some passion there. There was a lot there. So just look here, take a sip. Go ahead.
It's funny, we can't go much
You're
deep.
not gonna. I asked you to take a sip, and you're not gonna take a sip. Thank you. Cheers. There you go. That makes me feel
We
better.
can't go much deeper than Carlos Jorge talk on a
No, that's
Thursday
good.
afternoon.
That's good. I like it. I'm gonna give you a quick breather because I feel like it's a good time just to remind people that they can reach out to us, that they can talk to us. The email is powerstackspod at gmail. Powerstackspod at gmail. You can do that if you want to talk about the show, if you have questions. Um, please send us your Charlie in the Wild photos or information. If you have that, that's the place to do that. And also, I'll remind you this. Look, this season is off and going. The Reds, people love talking about this. This is what this city and Reds country is about. And people who listen to Power Stacks all over this great land of ours. If you want to partner with us, if you have a business, we can do something fun for your business, just like our great backers from Joseph Toyota. You can hit us up on the email and we can make that happen. So I feel like I bought you some time there. If we were in hockey, I gave you a shift off so you could catch your breath. But let's do Charlie's notebook now because there's always good stuff in Charlie's notebook. And we said off the top, we weren't going to spend a lot of time on the bullpen update, but I want to do one more thing. We touched on it off the top um, the other night, and that's what we were talking about on Wednesday. Is what were the other options? When Santillan was back out of the ninth, and you kind of rattled those off. We saw the big league debut of Zach McCambley, and he was fine. Who knows where that goes, but he was there out of necessity and needed to pitch and pitched well. Luis May, Lyon Richardson had a tough night and has elected now free agency after being DFA'd by the Reds. So Lyon Richardson, who's been part of this mix and this back and forth for a few years now, is going to look for opportunities somewhere else. And the one thing that did happen that's new, you mentioned it earlier, but with Brett Lauder expected to be back in the rotation for the end of the series in St. Louis, Chris Paddock goes to the bullpen. And that is an interesting add just because, we've seen Chris Paddock trying to bounce back from what he did as a starter in Miami. How's that going to look in the bullpen? We don't know. So I'll give you a quick thought on the bullpen here, but we have to hold to our promise to not spend a lot of time on this.
I like Paddock because we've talked all year about the sneaky need for long relief. I think that can help. Um, Ferguson and Antone are on the rise. I think the key right now is Maxwell. I think
Okay.
there's such a wide range of outcomes for how this could look for him, and you need to see what you got there.
All right. I agree with that. And I think we're going to see what you got pretty soon because Reds need all these guys to be able to pitch and be available. Quickly, we've talked so much about depth when the season started, and as we start to see more of what is considered the Reds' depth from AAA at the big league level now, what about what's there? When they need something else, how is the depth now at the high levels of the minors for the Reds?
Let's do 30 minutes on the Louisville Bats. No, I'm just kidding.
Ooh.
Um, but no, like, so we this land of opportunity, all like I liked a lot outside of the rotation, the depth the Reds had in AAA in March. I don't like it now. Um, the Louisville Bats at one point had Blake Dunn, Edwin Arroyo, Reese Hines, JJ Bleday, Christian Encarnacion Strand.
Yeah.
And some guys are here. Strand and Hines are gone. And then, when you look at depth, like I mean, these guys weren't good. They weren't effective, but in theory, two of Louisville's top, or not in theory, in practice, two of Louisville's top relievers were Junior Marte, now a free agent, and Lyon Richardson, now a free agent. Like, May's been up and down and hasn't clicked. Phillips is down there and he hasn't clicked. Friedel's down there and there's not a ton of confidence in him right now. They had these levers to pull of guys you could call up, kind of outside of Hector, and Hector's defense makes it its own can of worms. Like in the bullpen and in the lineup, it's not like you have those same options in Louisville right now. Just if you're keeping track, if it's not Friedel, and it would probably be Friedel if you needed something. But, Michael Chavis is kind of next up in Louisville from the position player standpoint. And journeyman Julian Garcia, who spent a couple of years in Indy ball, is the top reliever, I think, in Louisville right now, outside of Phillips. And Phillips is working through what he's working through. So something to keep in mind as you look at where the depth is at.
Noted. And we didn't say much about Phillips throughout most of this conversation. It's been well documented, the ceiling of Connor Phillips, and then well documented the reality of what we saw from him at times when he was here. But you get the sense if he stays healthy, you're going to see him again because the Reds, again, as we've said, given the current circumstances, they need guys like that. We're going to do only the best now from Joseph Toyota of Cincinnati. And Chaz, I'm just going to go ahead and anoint only the best this week as this final segment that we teased off the top, because as soon as you told me about this, I loved it. Because, well, I love most of the Texas guys in the clubhouse anyway, for obvious reasons. I like doing that. And Jose Trevino is a Texas guy. Jose Trevino is a South Texas guy, which when you have a state as large as the Lone Star State is, those regions mean different things and tell you different things about the people that live there and grew up there. So he's a South Texas guy. And I did know, though, when he played for the Rangers, which is North Texas, he really got into the Dallas Stars. So he was, some kid from South Texas where there's not ice within a few thousand miles, fell in love with hockey when he played in Dallas or played in the Metroplex for the Rangers. And so we talked about that before with Jose Trevino. But South Texas, They love them some San Antonio Spurs. And with the Spurs and the NBA Finals right now, and knowing that you're a hoops guy, I want to know the genesis, the birth of this conversation you had with Jose Trevino about hoops and the Spurs.
Well, it started a couple weeks ago, and it was funny. I was watching Jose engage in debate, I believe, with like Will Benson about Tim Duncan versus Kobe Bryant. But I knew before then too that Jose, one, is just a big Spurs fan. Two, like Jose is one of the best studiers of hitters in baseball. Like
Yeah.
that's his strength. He's not the best slugger. Doesn't have the best arm. Like he reads hitters. He reads athletes. Like he can tell what makes guys tick. And that is part of the reason why he wants to manage and why Terra Francona says that Jose could manage one day. It's a big part of what he brings to the table. And so Jose, one, loves the Spurs, and two, he's like studied the Spurs. And with the Spurs in the finals, I caught up with him about a bunch of that. And I asked him about Victor Wembanyama, and what he said about Victor was he cares a lot. He just cares. He fits right into the Spurs mold. It runs through him, and he's not afraid to carry that. He said that Victor's a perfect
Sounds like a
example of-
manager, right? Sounds
Yeah.
like a manager.
He said Victor's a perfect example of how culture can bridge one era to the next and shape a guy. Jose said that when you talk about sports culture and how everyone pulls in one direction, people point to a few teams, people point to the Spurs. And that's something that Jose himself has studied with the Spurs, going back to being a Spurs fan as a kid, and then even as a professional, Major League Baseball player, keeping track and maybe even thinking more critically about what's made that magic stew in San Antonio. And so following the Spurs for as long as he has, and with his interest in being a manager one day, I asked, like, do you look at Greg Popovich? Like, is that one of the guys who you have thought about in this sort of, and when I say critical, I don't mean negative, I mean critical, like you would criticize a book. And he has. And here's what Jose Trevino had to say about Greg Popovich.
Was there a favorite moment from the run, a play or something like that? Or
Yeah, Luke Cornett's block.
yeah,
That is going down at, like, I will buy dinner for that guy if I see him every single time. Like, that play right there was like the play of all plays. I don't know if I don't care what anybody says. That was the play of all plays.
what does it do for a team when and you've been a part of playoff teams that have done this, when you have a role player?
Oh, dude, it's the best. It's the best. Like, understanding your role is like one of the biggest things in sports. Like, not trying to be that. You need to be what you're not, and I'm not saying not to chase that, but like at the same time, be realistic, and like understand your role, and then be very, very good.
What do you learn from Pop?
Dude, he loves his players. Like, obviously Tim Duncan is my favorite athlete of all time. Him and Jeter, like, it's 1A, 1B. Like, it is right there. And if I had to pick one, I can tell you. But yeah, Pop obviously got sick, had a stroke. And like, Tim Duncan's obviously still living in San Antonio, and he's going every day with Pop. Like, it made that much of an impact on Tim Duncan that Tim Duncan makes room for his coaches, and like, I heard they're tied, like they are everywhere together. So I think that's really cool, and I think Pop really loves his players and gets to know his players and stuff. It's very well known, what he does and what he likes to do. He just cares a lot.
And so Jose has watched the head of a team care like Pop has, and he's taking note of that. And I think if Jose ends up managing, he'll be thinking a lot about the way Pop did things in San Antonio and the lessons from that.
Quick question, and this could be a 30-minute show. What's the first thing that comes to mind to you that will make Jose Trevino a good manager?
He sits at his locker and he just sees everything.
He sees
I don't
everything.
know that And on the field, this is his superpower. And I'll say it
Right.
again, like he doesn't hit for power. He doesn't have the best arm, but the fact that he sees everything, and then how locked in he is
Mhm.
in terms of he doesn't just prepare. Like
Right.
he prepares in a way that pays off from a pitch calling perspective. Like the link there, and then just the fact that he sees and has his finger on the pulse of everything. And then one more thing too, like even something as silly as, and it is silly, but he was a terrific host of the Reds spring training free throw shootout. Like I got to see him at the
Right.
front of the room outside, not in a closed clubhouse where I wouldn't be, when they'd be having a team meeting. Like I got to see Jose, the vocal leader, in front of the group in that free throw shootout, and I was like, I saw it,
Yeah.
and I think Jose has that in him.
I agree. He's got it. I've seen it in the same way that you have. Did some stuff with him at Reds Fest that enlightened me a little bit more about what he has in him that way. And the reason he likes Greg Popovich is because Pop has, for all of these years, has been a leader of men in that organization, um, uncompromising, but universally loved for how he handled people and ran that team. And that doesn't mean that it was easy to play for or work for Greg Popovich or interview Greg Popovich from our standpoint.
That's
Famously,
right.
famously tough interview. But you see a lot of those things in Jose Trevino. And but the beauty about Jose Trevino is it's so easy to get him to talk about things that he's passionate about, just not himself. Doesn't ever want to do that. But I love that. That's a great story. Chaz, thus ends the show about the land of opportunity in Cincinnati, in which there has been a tornado of transition. That's it. I think we emptied the bag on those two topics. Thanks to producer Kent. Thanks to you for the hard work. Thanks to everyone for listening and watching. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time on Power Stacks.